You wake up, and for a split second, the world hasn't decided what you are yet. And that moment is the cleanest canvas you will ever get. So seize it, because the day will try to paint you with old colors. Last year's doubts, someone else's expectations, the algorithm's curve, the market's mood, yesterday's mistakes, all of it pulling like gravity toward the version of you that costs the least energy to maintain. And you are not here to be cheap energy. You are here to burn, to refine, to choose, to be the one who decides what gets oxygen and what suffocates, to be ruthless with the noise and generous with the signal, to pierce through the fog with a single sentence that defines the next 12 months of your life. Because clarity is a blade, and you're here to cut, not to drift. And the first cut is this. Today, it's you versus you, not you versus them, not you versus the crowd, not you versus some ghost of perfection. Just you versus the version that settles. You versus the voice that says later. You versus the friction that feels like truth but is only comfort masquerading as wisdom. And if you own this duel, you don't need permission. You don't need applause. You don't need the weather to be perfect. You don't need the right song or the right shoes or the right welcome. You just need the first decisive act, the one that makes the next act unavoidable. The keystroke that opens the file, the shoe hitting the road, the phone call started before fear can script it, the line in your calendar that everything else must orbit. Because momentum isn't magic. Momentum is a decision repeated until it looks like fate. Everything starts in the head, but not as a thought to be admired, as a thought to be weaponized, sharpened, tested, broken, welded, rebuilt, simplified until it can be executed by a tired future you at 11:47 p.m. when excuses multiply like ads. And this is where mindset stops being a poster and becomes a protocol. Whatever you feed grows, so you feed focus, you feed responsibility, you feed the bias to action, and you starve the loop of blame and the loop of comparison and the loop of gossip, because attention is the one currency that inflates when you print it on junk and compounds when you invest it in problems no one else will touch. And the world pays premiums to the ones who own their attention. You don't rise to the level of your potential. You default to the level of your systems. So you build systems that protect your best hours, like a vault protects gold. You fence off mornings like sacred ground. You don't check into other people's priorities before you clock into your purpose. You run a tight audit on what earns 10 minutes of your life. You create rules that eliminate the need for heroic willpower, because willpower is a candle in wind and rules are a lighthouse. And if the rule is simple, create before you consume, build before you browse, think in silence before you check the noise, then the day unfolds like a well-designed interface, obvious, intentional, fast. Belief isn't positive thinking. Belief is a decision to make your future self the authority instead of your present fear. A contract with the version of you that can see further than your current excuses. And belief has to be specific to be strong. Not I hope I can, but I will do this by this date with this mechanism, measured by this metric, and then you move as if it were already true. Because identity leads behavior, and behavior teaches identity what to believe. And you don't wait for confidence. You do the reps that print confidence into your nervous system. You don't stand at the edge of the pool negotiating with cold water. You jump and let the body learn that shock is safe, that action is anesthesia for doubt. You have to let go of the romance of being underestimated and grab the burden of being the one who sets a ridiculous pace. It's not about proving people wrong. It's about proving your future self right. And if you must borrow energy from conflict, borrow it for the first lap only. Then switch to fuel that doesn't poison your lungs' curiosity, craftsmanship, a fierce loyalty to the promise you made to the person on the other side of your work, the person who needs what you're building and doesn't know your name and doesn't care about your excuses, only the outcome you deliver. Clarity is kindness to yourself and cruelty to distractions. And the most loving thing you can do for your potential is to say no to 99 shiny options so you can say yes to the one that moves the needle. You simplify until the product, the habit, the presentation, the pitch, the day, the life fits in one line, and if it doesn't fit in one line, it doesn't fit in your life yet. Complexity is often vanity in disguise. Simplicity is mastery without the noise. And when you start stripping away, you learn which pieces were actually doing the work and which were there to make you feel busy, important, safe. You decide on the single metric that matters this cycle. the one number that tells the truth. Because multiple metrics create wiggle room for stories, and stories create moral victories without real victories. And you don't need the sugar of almost, you need the weight of done. The question isn't, what else could I add? It's what would break if I removed this. And if nothing breaks, it's fluff. And you build your day with the same discipline you would build a circuit board. Clean lines, minimal friction, intentional flows, everything serving a purpose or removed with gratitude. Vision isn't a fantasy board. Vision is a vivid, sensory-rich preview that puts your nervous system on the hook. A North Star that shines so specifically you can walk toward it at night without tripping. And you build it by narrating your future in the present tense until your brain becomes allergic to choices that contradict it. You don't write a paragraph that sounds good. You write instructions your body can obey. Where you work, what you see when you open your laptop, how your calendar looks on Tuesday at 2:00 p.m., the smell of the room where you pitch, the weight of the pen when you sign, the silence of the morning you own before the city wakes up. You don't ask the world for permission. You prototype the future. You pull it forward with small, undeniable proofs. A demo that makes delays embarrassing and resistance irrational. You design your environment to betray your excuses. If the gym is 10 steps away, resistance dies. If your writing template is loaded before coffee, the blank page loses its teeth. If your kit is packed by the door, the workout ends before the debate begins. Vision pulls, fear pushes. Make your future pull so hard the present has to catch up or snap. Purpose is oxygen for endurance, and you will quit every path that doesn't answer the question, who is this for and why does it matter if I stop? Because when pain comes, fancy goals will evaporate, but purpose digs in and refuses to leave. Purpose is not a slogan. Purpose is a responsibility to a real human being on the other side of your work. And that person is why you obsess over edges no one else will see. Why you cut out features that don't earn their keep. Why you ship before you feel elegant. Why you return to the drawing board without shame. Because the point isn't to be right. The point is to be useful. You are not chasing applause. You are chasing impact. And impact is measured in changed mornings, not likes, in fewer steps for the user, not more glamour in the deck. In the way your work reduces friction for someone else, not in the way it inflates status for yourself. There's a clock on your wall that only you can hear, the one that reminds you finite time is not a threat, it's a filter. And when you filter choices through the reality that you do not have forever, shallow hustle dies, meaningful urgency is born, and every meeting that can be an email disappears, every email that can be a checklist disappears, every checklist that doesn't move the metric disappears, and what's left is the work you can be proud of when you turn the lights off. Discipline is freedom wearing a uniform. You don't build it by negotiating with yourself every morning. You build it by reducing choices where you're weak and amplifying choices where you're strong. You build it by setting hard edges around what matters. Sleep like it's venture capital for your brain. Mornings like they're prime real estate. Deep work blocks like they're meetings with your future. Non-negotiable, protected, guarded by minimum viable boundaries. Phone outside the room, notifications off, do not disturb on, door closed, playlist that cues flow not mood, timer set for the sprint, no multitasking, no tab surfing, one screen, one task, one target. Discipline means you can be counted on by the person you will be in 3 months. You act today so they don't have to apologize for you later. And you say no like a surgeon, clean, precise, without guilt. Because every yes is a mortgage on your time. And you will not finance someone else's urgency with your destiny's interest. You keep score by actions, not intentions. You track the streaks that matter, and you never miss twice. You are not aiming for perfection. You are aiming for identity. And identities are forged by repeated votes in one direction until the ballot box overflows and no one believes your old story, including you. Action is the conversion of belief into evidence, and the fastest way to learn is to ship, because reality is the only mentor that doesn't flatter you. You build in public when it matters, because accountability accelerates maturation. You test ideas with prototypes that are too small to fail slowly and too frequent to ignore. You treat feedback like oxygen. Not perfume, inhale it, don't wear it. You respond faster than doubt can regroup. You redesign based on data, not ego. You never make the same mistake expensively twice. When you move, the world becomes legible. and problems shrink to the size you can hold, and obstacles become raw material for leverage. You stop waiting for inspiration, the way amateurs wait for the weather, and you get to work until the weather looks like it changed because your output increased. You realize the difference between being busy and being in motion. Busy is a costume for avoidance. Motion is a pipeline to outcomes. And the way you know the difference is by the trail you leave behind. Commits, calls, drafts, workouts, deliveries, invoices, shipped features, candid conversations, hard decisions made before they make you. Gratitude is not softness. Gratitude is a strategic amplifier that keeps power from leaking out of your system, and you practice it not to dull your edge, but to keep the blade from rusting in resentment. You are grateful for constraints because they teach elegance, for deadlines because they force language to be sharp, for critics because they expose assumptions, for the stubborn bug because it teaches the architecture you didn't understand, for the competitor because they help you train at full speed, for your team because they catch your blind spots, for your mentors because they loan you their maps, for your past self because they made deposits you're withdrawing now. And gratitude transmits stability to everyone around you. It says, this is hard, and we're lucky. Both are true. We're not victims of the work, we're authors of the work. Gratitude is the antidote to entitlement. And entitlement is the quiet rot that kills momentum. So you refuse to expect comfort as a payment for effort. You expect feedback as the rent for results. Flexibility is not indecision. Flexibility is the courage to update when the truth updates, and you become ruthless about distinguishing principles from preferences. Principles are few and fixed. Preferences are many and negotiable. You don't marry a tactic, you marry a promise, and you will break up with any tactic that stops serving the promise. You hold strong opinions lightly so you can release them the moment better data arrives. You pivot earlier than your pride would prefer. You experiment without falling in love with the experimenter. You maintain a portfolio of bets so that one failing line doesn't sink the ship. You treat sunk cost like a mirage in the desert, and you keep walking toward water. Flexibility means you can be surprised by reality without breaking. It means you make room for contradictions during invention, because creation is messy. And sometimes genius looks like confusion before it looks like obvious. So you allow yourself to look foolish in public for a while in exchange for being effective in the long run. Resilience is not bouncing back. Resilience is bouncing forward, returning with more information than you left with, integrating the pain into the architecture so the same stress later becomes a gym instead of a graveyard. You pre-commit to staying in the ring long enough to learn what the ring is trying to teach. You build redundancy into your schedule so a single failure can't erase a week. You treat rejection as a routing signal, not a referendum on your worth. You do a post-mortem on anything that collapses, and you turn the lessons into checklists. You measure your career not by how few times you fall, but by how quickly and intelligently you stand. You engineer your environment so the default path leads back to momentum. You build a recovery protocol as carefully as you build a launch protocol. Sleep, movement, sunlight, hydration, journaling, candid conversation, art you love, laughter that returns your nervous system to safety. And once your baseline stabilizes, you move again, not because you forgot the pain, but because you reallocated it into fuel. The point is not invulnerability. The point is anti-fragility. Pressure creates clarity. Friction creates polish. Constraints create creativity. And if you stay in motion, what would have broken you last year becomes a warm-up this year. Learning is your edge, because most people want validation more than instruction. And you will be the opposite. You will be the one who seeks out uncomfortable data, who revises models, who reads original sources, who asks simple questions in rooms where everyone is pretending to understand, who cares more about accurate maps than about being seen as already arrived. You live in beginner's mind by default. You assume no one owes you simplicity. You build it yourself by thinking from first principles, by breaking problems into atoms, by refusing to inherit limitations that don't apply anymore, by placing small bets that cleanly test hypotheses, by treating errors like libraries, expensive to build and valuable to own. You're not content to be informed, you intend to be transformed. And transformation is the result of cycles of exposure and reflection, of practice and critique, of shipping and studying the wreckage, of patience with the hard parts and impatience with your own avoidance. You teach what you learn because teaching exposes gaps. And you close the gaps in public so your courage grows roots. This is the rhythm you choose. Wake up and claim the narrative before the world assigns one. Write a one-line mission that makes decision-making automatic. Eliminate the optional so the essential has room to breathe. Insert your best work where your best energy naturally occurs. Guard it with rituals that feel like scaffolding around a building under renovation. And keep renovating until the building is unrecognizable to the neighbors who only remember the first draft of your life. You put your phone across the room like it owes you rent. You write the uncomfortable email. You clean your calendar of meetings that exist only to avoid the work. You run the play you promised yourself. You give your future self a gift by making their next move obvious. You treat the day like a design problem and solve for friction, throughput, and delight. You automate what should be automatic. You delegate what isn't your edge. You batch what drains you slowly. You upgrade tools that save time. And you don't hoard money while wasting hours because you know the exchange rate. Time is the only non-renewable asset, and you will never trade it for approval again. You refuse to let comparison hijack your drive. You focus on your arc, your compounding, your daily deltas. If someone moves faster, good. Pace is instructive. If someone has more, good. Scarcity is a teacher. If someone is louder, good. Silence is where signal grows. You work from the inside out. Tight feedback loops, clean iterations, honest metrics, a timeline that respects the seasons of deep work and recovery. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't share your frame. You stop waiting for consensus. You stop mistaking motion for progress and attention for affection. You understand that every time you avoid a hard choice, you are choosing by default, and every default is a design you didn't author. You tear default settings out by the root and install intention in their place. This is what I do on Mondays. This is what Tuesday means. This is the ritual that primes Wednesday. This is how Thursday ends. This is what I protect on Friday. This is how I say no on Saturday. This is how I set Sunday on fire without burning out. You run weeks like sprints, and quarters like themes, and years like chapters, and you're not afraid to close a chapter aggressively to protect the next one. You pick a craft and give it reverence. You build taste deliberately, because taste decides faster than data, and taste is trained by exposure to the best and the ruthless elimination of the average you consume to pass time. You study the roots of excellence in your domain until they become native, and then you inject your weird, your history, your scars, your geography, your accent, your contradictions, because originality is just honesty set to a rhythm other people can feel. You do the work in layers, functional, reliable, usable, delightful. And you don't settle 2 layers in when the 4th is where hearts move. You design for outcomes, not optics, for the person, not the press release. You apply the rule that quality is what reduces regret after use, not what makes the demo slick. And you will not be seduced by surfaces that hide rotten cores. You make the hard parts elegant and the invisible parts gorgeous, because integrity increases resilience. What looks good because it is good survives storms. This is where you begin to understand your power. You can set constraints like a master architect and watch creativity bloom in the corner, where the world assumed death lived. You can define one constraint so bold it acts like an engine ship, something meaningful every day. Improve one key metric by 1% daily for 100 days. Write 1 page before touching a screen. Make 1 uncomfortable call before lunch, and every day with a 2-minute retrospective and a single improvement locked in for tomorrow. And these constraints will give you more freedom than a life built on whenever I feel like it ever could. Freedom without form is drift. Form without freedom is prison. You build the 3rd thing, intentional structure that multiplies possibility, not cages it. When doubt shows up, you don't debate at length. You give it 15 seconds of respect so it doesn't metastasize into shame. Then you move, because motion stars doubt. If you need a trick, use physics. Lower activation energy, increase immediate reward, reduce the radius of the first step. If you need a story, tell a better one. The protagonist does the hard thing early in the day, and the rest of the day composes itself around that achievement. If you need a symbol, pick one object that anchors your identity, a notebook, a ring, a key, a card, and let it become a ritual, something you touch when your brain tries to switch operating systems from courageous to comfortable. You are not pretending you don't feel fear, you are acknowledging fear, and then choosing not to inherit its map of the world. There will be people who want you to spend your life explaining yourself to their anxieties. You will not. There will be temptations to play small so you never draw fire. You will not. There will be offers that pay well but cost too much soul. You will pass. There will be seasons where you are invisible. You will keep building because obscurity is a laboratory that fame cannot buy. There will be days when the metric refuses to move. You will redesign the system instead of labeling yourself broken. There will be nights when your own head feels hostile. You will borrow tomorrow's calm by executing the next step anyway. You will not outsource your self-respect to anyone's opinion, including your own, when you're tired. You will be relentless about the basics, because basics compound. Sleep like it's a performance enhancer, because it is. Move daily like it's a brain upgrade, because it is. Eat for clarity and energy, not comfort and sedation. Drink water like you want your organs to remain on your team. Get sunlight like your body runs a solar OS. Maintain relationships like they are scaffolding for your dreams. Talk to yourself the way you would talk to a teammate. You need functioning at a high level. Clean your space because entropy steals attention. Pre-decide your mornings because mornings decide your momentum. Measure progress weekly because daily noise lies. You will remove drama from your process like a surgeon removes infection, fast, decisively, without public ceremony, because drama is a tax on progress and you are done paying. There is a difference between speed and haste. You will move fast without being frantic. You will prioritize throughput without sacrificing precision. You will build forward while honoring the foundation. You will raise the ceiling by strengthening the floor. You will speak plainly and make promises you can keep, and then keep them even when it stings. You will cultivate a reputation with yourself that you protect like a fragile heirloom. If you say you'll do it, you'll do it. If you say you'll be there, you'll be there. If you make a mistake, you'll name it without flinching and correct it with urgency. You will train yourself to endure boredom, because boredom is just the absence of novelty, not the absence of meaning. And mastery hides in the repetitions that look quiet from the outside and feel holy from the inside. You will remain playful, because play heals speed, and you will keep a sandbox for experiments where stakes are low and learning is high. And you will let curiosity chase rabbits on purpose sometimes, and you will bring back something strange and beautiful that cross-pollinates your main field. You will resist cynicism, because cynicism is just the coward's accent. It sounds smart and builds nothing. You will keep honest optimism alive, not blind optimism. The kind that sees the mess and stays anyway, because it's your mess and you can make it better. You will be a good ancestor to your future self, which means saying no when yes would be easy and toxic, saying yes when no would be safe and small, and holding your line when the world negotiates for you to move cheap. At some point, the external scoreboard will flash in your direction, trying to recruit you into the circus of public measurement. You will smile and keep building because you already picked your internal scoreboard and it measures the right things. Did you make the hard call? Did you move the metric that matters? Did you honor your energy? Did you build with integrity? Did you ship? Did you learn? Did you help? Did you do the thing that keeps promises with your future? If yes, you won. If no, you iterate. You will remind yourself that the span of your life is a narrow band of time, stitched between infinite before and after, and wasting it on the carnival of comparison is an insult to the gift you were given when you woke up and the world hadn't decided what you are yet. Now the day is in your hands. The duel is on. You hold both sides, the sabotage and the salvation, the friction and the flow. You choose which voice gets the microphone, which habits get oxygen, which priorities get oxygen masks, and which get quietly escorted off the plane. You stop calling it trying like a hedge. You call it doing like a decision. You stop asking the calendar for permission to be who you said you would be. You start shaping time like clay. You stop listening to the myths that tell you you must wait for luck's blessing. You become the kind of person luck recognizes because you are already moving when the door cracks open. So breathe. Plant a flag in this minute and declare it the first square of the board that you own outright. Write your one-line mission. Identify your single metric. Delete the non-essential. Choose the smallest step that insults your excuses. Set the timer. Start. Keep your head down and your heart up. Do the rep. Stack the reps. Ship the work. Review the work. Improve the work. Repeat. Keep the promises. Build the taste. Clean the edges. Tell the truth. Protect the mornings, guard the deep work, learn loudly, update quickly, pivot cleanly. Recover intelligently. Be grateful aggressively. Move with elegance. Move with force. Move. And when the voice returns that says you can coast now, that you've done enough for today, that someone else will take it from here, that you can postpone the hard thing just this once, you will stand in the center of your life and smile with a kind of quiet, earned authority, and you will say, out loud or under your breath, the line that returns you to the path every time. It's you versus you. It's always been you versus you. And you know how this ends because you are writing it as you go. One clean decision at a time, one unglamorous rep at a time, one brave yes and one surgical no, and one act of uncompromising clarity at a time until the person you decided to be is no longer a goal on paper, but the only identity you recognize. Keep going, keep building. Keep choosing. The world will catch up. Your results will speak the loudest language. Your future will thank you in a voice that sounds exactly like yours. Steady, certain, unstoppable.